What if I told you that in our hyper-connected world, the very essence of trust, something we all crave and struggle with, was perfected thousands of years ago by ancient philosophers? It's a strange thought, isn't it? We live in an era of digital promises, instant communication, and endless information, yet trust often feels more fragile than ever. We question motives, doubt intentions, and wonder if loyalty is just an outdated concept. But what if the answers we're searching for today were already written in stone, practiced in bustling Roman forums and quiet Athenian gardens? The Stoics, those profound thinkers of antiquity, didn't just ponder life's big questions. They built an entire framework for living with unshakable trust at its core. And these principles are not relics. They are living, breathing guides that remain startlingly relevant in our modern relationships, workplaces, and communities. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most respected Stoic voices and a Roman emperor, once reflected, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That simple, powerful idea cuts straight to the heart of trust. It isn't about grand gestures or complex rules. It's about character. It's about who we are when no one is watching. The Stoics believed trust was built on virtues like integrity, wisdom, courage, and justice. These weren't abstract ideals, they were daily practices. They were the unspoken codes that governed how people interacted, did business, formed friendships, and led nations. These codes created bonds so strong they could withstand betrayal, uncertainty, and the tests of time. And here's the beautiful part: they weren't reserved for philosophers or rulers. They were meant for everyone, for you, for me, for anyone willing to look inward and live with purpose. In this video, we're going to explore 20 of these timeless Stoic codes principles that shaped trust in the ancient world and still hold incredible power today. We'll journey through ideas like the non-negotiable nature of integrity, the profound impact of keeping your word, the strength found in discretion, and the quiet power of consistency. We'll see how empathy, accountability, and patience aren't just nice qualities, they're the bedrock of meaningful connections. And along the way, we'll reflect on how these ancient insights can transform the way we build trust in our own lives. This isn't about history, it's about now. It's about reclaiming something real in a world that often feels superficial. So, if you've ever wondered how to deepen your relationships, strengthen your influence, or simply become someone others can truly rely on, you're in the right place. Let's begin. In Stoicism, trust begins with unwavering integrity. It was the cornerstone, the absolute bedrock upon which every other aspect of trust was built. The ancient Stoics didn't see integrity as a nice-to-have quality or a flexible guideline. They saw it as a non-negotiable requirement for a life well lived and for relationships that could truly endure. In a world without digital contracts or instant verification, a person's character was their most valuable currency. Your reputation for honesty and consistency was everything. It determined your standing in the community, your success in commerce, and the depth of your personal connections. This wasn't just a philosophical idea. It was a practical reality woven into the fabric of daily life in ancient Rome and Greece. Seneca, the great Stoic thinker and advisor, captured this idea perfectly when he wrote, "Live in such a way that you would not be ashamed to sell your parrot to the town gossip." That vivid image says it all. It's about living with such consistent honesty that even the most talkative, scrutinizing person in your community couldn't find a single thing to criticize. Your public actions and your private behavior are in perfect alignment. There's no gap between what you say and what you do, between the values you preach and the choices you make. For the Stoics, this internal consistency was the very definition of integrity. It's what makes a person reliable, predictable in the best possible way, and ultimately worthy of trust. Consider a modern example in the world of business. Imagine two companies are competing for a major client. One company, led by someone who practices this Stoic virtue, makes a promise about a delivery timeline. Later, they encounter a production delay that threatens that promise. The easy path would be to blame external factors, to hide the delay, or to deliver a subpar product quickly. But a leader with integrity informs the client immediately, explains the situation transparently, and outlines the honest steps they are taking to resolve it, even if it means a slightly longer wait. That short-term discomfort builds immense long-term trust. The client now knows this is a partner who tells the truth even when it's difficult. They become a client for life. In our personal lives, it works the same way. It's the friend who shows up exactly when they said they would, who remembers the small promise they made weeks ago and follows through without being reminded. These acts of integrity are like deposits in a trust bank account, and they accumulate into relationships of unshakable strength. Think about your own experiences for a moment. Can you recall a time when someone's profound integrity, or a glaring lack of it, fundamentally shifted your ability to trust them? Perhaps it was a colleague who took responsibility for a team error instead of passing the blame, instantly earning your respect. Or maybe it was a time when someone you admired made a choice that revealed a hypocrisy between their words and actions, and that trust, once broken, became incredibly difficult to rebuild. That feeling, that visceral reaction we have to integrity or the lack of it, is exactly what the Stoics understood. It's a universal human response that transcends centuries. They recognize that trust isn't a contract you sign. It's a feeling you earn through the daily, unwavering practice of being a person of your word. How often do we underestimate the power of our word? In our fast-paced world, a promise can feel almost weightless, something tossed out casually and often forgotten just as quickly. But the Stoics saw this differently. They believed your word was not just a string of sounds, it was a sacred extension of your character, a tangible measure of your self-discipline and honor. For them, every commitment, no matter how small, was a test of integrity. Epictetus, a philosopher who began his life as a slave and understood the profound weight of personal responsibility, drilled this idea into his students. He taught that true freedom comes from self-mastery, and there is no greater mastery than ensuring your actions are in perfect harmony with your declarations. When you say you will do something, you have essentially created a tiny contract with the universe, and to break it is to create a crack in your own foundation. Epictetus put it bluntly when he said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. This is the ultimate expression of keeping your word. It's not about eloquent speeches or grand declarations of intent. It's about the quiet, consistent follow-through. It's the action that proves the truth of your words." Imagine a leader, a manager in a modern company who tells her team, "I value your work-life balance." That's a common phrase, easily said, but then an urgent project lands. The easy path is to send emails at 10 p.m., to expect weekend work, to apply silent pressure. The leader who embodies her word, however, does the harder thing. She protects her team's time. She says, "This can wait until Monday morning," or "Let's reprioritize other tasks so this doesn't become an around-the-clock burden." Her actions match her words. In that moment, she isn't just managing a project, she is building an unshakable reservoir of trust. Her team learns that her promises are real. They feel safe, respected, and valued, and their loyalty and dedication will deepen because that trust has been proven through action, not just rhetoric. This principle transforms every interaction. It's the friend who, when they say, "I'm here for you," actually picks up the phone at 2 a.m. to listen. It's the colleague who promises to review your report by Tuesday, and not only has it done but has provided thoughtful, constructive feedback. Each kept word, each fulfilled promise is a brick in the construction of your reputation. People begin to know on a visceral level that they can rely on you. This reliability becomes your signature, the thing you are known for above all else. And in a world filled with uncertainty, that kind of predictability is incredibly rare and valuable. It tells people that you are in control of yourself, that you are a person of substance. So let's turn that reflection inward. Think about your own life over the past week. How many small commitments did you make, both to others and to yourself? Did you tell a friend you'd call them back and then let it slip your mind? Did you promise yourself you'd start that project today, only to find a distraction? It's in these seemingly insignificant moments that the muscle of keeping your word is exercised. Every time you follow through on a tiny promise, you strengthen your ability to honor the larger, more important ones. It's a continuous practice of aligning what you say with what you do until the two become inseparable. This is how you build a life where trust isn't something you ask for, but something you naturally inspire. Trust often hinges on what isn't said. In the Stoic view, the ability to guard a confidence was not merely a social skill but a profound moral virtue, a direct reflection of one's inner discipline and respect for others. While integrity and keeping your word are about what you do with your own promises, discretion is about what you do with the truths others entrust to you. The ancient world, much like ours, was a web of delicate relationships and sensitive information. A person known for loose lips was quickly identified and avoided, while those who could be trusted with a secret became invaluable advisors, friends, and leaders. This wasn't about secrecy for its own sake. It was about understanding the weight of another person's vulnerability and honoring it. In a sense, when someone shares something confidential with you, they are giving you a piece of their autonomy, their reputation, or their peace of mind. To betray, that is to damage the very fabric of trust. Marcus Aurelius, in his private meditations, constantly wrestled with the ethics of speech and action. He wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" This simple, piercing question is the ultimate filter for discretion. Before speaking, especially about matters involving others, the Stoic would pause and apply this test. Is this comment necessary? Is this story helpful? Does sharing this information serve a virtuous purpose? Or is it merely to generate gossip, to make myself seem important, or to fill an awkward silence? This practice cultivates a powerful habit of restraint. It's the conscious choice to hold back, to prioritize the sanctity of a confidence over the fleeting pleasure of being in the know. This kind of self-control signals to everyone around you that you are a safe harbor. People sense that they can share an idea, a fear, or a dream with you without it becoming public currency. History is filled with figures whose power and influence were built almost entirely on their reputation for discretion. Consider the role of a trusted advisor to a Roman emperor or a medieval king. Their position was incredibly precarious. They were privy to plots, strategies, and personal failings that could topple empires or get them killed. Their survival and success depended entirely on their ability to be a vault. In modern terms, this translates directly to the non-disclosure agreements in business, the attorney-client privilege, or the doctor-patient confidentiality that form the bedrock of those professions. But it's just as critical in our personal lives. Think about a friend who tells you they are considering a new job but aren't ready to tell anyone else. Sharing that news, even with your own partner under the guise of it being just between us, is a breach of that sacred trust. Conversely, when you prove yourself discreet, you become the person people turn to for honest advice during life's most challenging transitions. They know their situation will be handled with care and not become the subject of speculation. We've all felt the sting of a broken confidence, that moment when you realize something you shared in a private moment has found its way to other ears. The feeling is one of violation and vulnerability, but we've also felt the deep reinforcement of trust when discretion is honored. Perhaps you confided in a colleague about a difficult family situation, and weeks later, you realize it never became office gossip. That person's silent loyalty likely strengthened your professional bond far more than any collaborative project ever could. Their choice to say nothing spoke volumes about their character. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Can you recall a specific instance where someone's discretion, their choice to protect your words, significantly deepened your trust in them? And perhaps more importantly, can you think of a time when your own discretion became a gift to someone else, a silent testament to your reliability? People trust those who are the same in private as in public. This idea goes far deeper than mere reputation management. It strikes at the very core of how we perceive safety and reliability in others. The Stoics championed this unwavering consistency not as a performance for social approval, but as the natural outcome of a life governed by internal principle rather than external convenience. When your actions are dictated by the situation, by who is watching, or by what you can gain, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is the enemy of trust. We might enjoy a spontaneous friend for a fun evening out, but we rarely entrust them with our deepest concerns or most important projects. True, durable trust is reserved for the individual whose moral compass points true north regardless of the storm raging around them or the audience watching. Seneca, in his letters, frequently returned to this theme of inner steadiness. He advised, "Let all your efforts be directed to something, let it keep that end in view." It's not activity that disturbs people, but false conceptions of things that drive them mad. This is a brilliant dissection of inconsistency. The disturbance he mentions is that erratic, unpredictable behavior that leaves others guessing. When our efforts are directed by a clear, virtuous end, when we have a solid set of principles guiding us, our actions become consistent. We are not blown off course by every new opinion, temptation, or moment of difficulty. That consistency is what people come to rely on. They learn the pattern of your character. They know how you will likely react to success, to failure, to pressure, or to ethical dilemmas. That predictability, rooted in virtue, is what allows others to feel secure in their relationship with you. We can see this principle embodied in leaders throughout history, but one particularly stoic example is George Washington. While not a formal Stoic philosopher, he was deeply influenced by its principles and was often described by his contemporaries as a man of profound character consistency. During the long, brutal years of the Revolutionary War, his army faced starvation, defeat, and desertion. Yet, Washington's conduct remained remarkably steady. He didn't lead from the rear. He shared the hardships of his troops at Valley Forge. He resisted calls to become a king or dictator when the army urged him to seize power, steadfastly believing in the Republican ideals he fought for. His public persona as the dignified commander-in-chief was matched by his private letters and actions, which revealed the same man, disciplined, dedicated, and bound by a code of honor. This wasn't a calculated act. It was the expression of a deeply internalized character. His men, and eventually an entire nation, learned to trust him not because of fiery speeches, but because they could predict with stunning accuracy that he would act with integrity and courage no matter the circumstance. His consistency built the trust necessary to hold a fragile army and a fledgling nation together. This kind of consistency creates a powerful psychological safety net for everyone around you. In a workplace, a manager whose mood is erratic, praising you one day and berating you for the same work the next, creates an environment of anxiety and caution. Conversely, a leader who is consistently fair, who gives feedback with the same constructive intent whether in a private one-on-one or a large meeting, builds a team that feels safe to innovate and speak openly. In our personal lives, it's the friend whose counsel is always grounded in the same values of honesty and kindness, whether you're asking for advice over coffee or they're intervening in a crisis. We don't have to waste energy guessing which version of them we will get today. We trust the core person, so let's turn that lens inward for a moment. How would those who know you best in different contexts, your family, your colleagues, your closest friends, describe your character? Would they use the same set of adjectives? Or does your behavior shift significantly depending on the audience and what you believe you can gain? This isn't about being rigid or lacking adaptability. It's about having a solid center, a set of non-negotiable virtues that inform your actions whether you're alone at home, under pressure at work, or socializing with friends. The goal is to close the gap between the person you aspire to be and the person you are when you think no one is keeping score. That alignment is where genuine, unshakable trust begins to grow. To build trust, we must first seek to understand. This might sound like a modern piece of relationship advice, but it was a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy 2,000 years ago. The Stoics had a powerful word for this concept, sympatheia. It doesn't just mean feeling sorry for someone. It translates to a profound sense of interconnectedness, the idea that we are all part of a shared human experience, bound together by reason and a common capacity for both joy and suffering. For them, empathy wasn't an emotional luxury or a soft skill. It was a rational duty and a practical tool for navigating the world virtuously. When we genuinely strive to understand another person's perspective, their motivations, and their struggles, we are not just being nice, we are acknowledging our shared membership in the human race. This acknowledgement is the fertile ground in which the seed of trust can sprout and grow strong. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who spent so much of his life dealing with difficult people and complex political intrigues, constantly reminded himself of this practice. In his private journal, he wrote, "When another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they should hold any particular opinion about you. This is Stoic empathy in action. It's not about agreeing with the person who criticizes you. It's about making the effort to see the world from their vantage point. What past hurts, what insecurities, what limited information might be shaping their view. By understanding their internal landscape, you disarm your own defensive anger and replace a reaction of hostility with a response of clarity. This shift doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you engage from a place of strength and understanding rather than ego and fear. That calm, comprehending posture is incredibly disarming and builds a surprising level of trust, even with adversaries. Consider a scenario that plays out in offices and homes every single day. Two colleagues are locked in a disagreement over a project's direction. The first, let's call him David, is adamant that his plan is the most efficient. The other, Sarah, is equally convinced her approach is more creative and will yield better long-term results. A standard conflict might involve both digging in their heels, repeating their points louder, and eventually creating a stalemate that requires a manager to break. But imagine if David, remembering the Stoic concept of sympatheia, decided to pause. Instead of preparing his next rebuttal while Sarah is talking, he truly listens. He asks questions not to trap her but to understand. Sarah, help me see what you're seeing. What part of your past experience makes you feel so strongly that this creative risk is the right move? In answering, Sarah might reveal that a previous, overly cautious project she worked on failed to capture any market attention. Her resistance isn't to David personally, it's a fear of repeating a past failure. By understanding that, David can now address the real concern, the fear of failure rather than just the surface-level argument about methods. He might adjust his plan to include some of her creative ideas but with built-in safeguards. This resolution, born from empathetic understanding, doesn't just solve the immediate problem, it builds immense trust. Sarah feels heard and valued, not just defeated. She learns that David is a collaborator who cares about her perspective, and that trust will make their future collaborations infinitely more productive and harmonious. This kind of empathetic engagement transforms relationships because it signals profound respect. You are telling the other person, your inner world, your experiences, and your reasoning matter to me. That validation is a powerful currency of trust. We've all been in conversations where we can physically feel the other person isn't listening. They're just waiting for their turn to talk. The difference when someone truly seeks to understand is palpable and unforgettable. It creates a bond. Think back on your own life for a moment. Can you recall a specific instance where someone's genuine effort to understand your perspective, to really see things from your side, fundamentally changed the dynamic of your relationship? Perhaps it was a parent who finally tried to see the world through your teenage eyes, a partner who made the effort to understand a deep-seated fear you have, or a friend who listened without judgment to a decision they didn't initially agree with. That moment of being truly understood often cements a deeper level of trust than any grand gesture ever could. Trust isn't broken by mistakes but by hiding them. This is a truth the Stoics understood with remarkable clarity. In a philosophy so dedicated to the pursuit of virtue and excellence, one might expect a harsh, unforgiving attitude toward failure. But the opposite is true. Stoicism provides a powerful framework for dealing with errors, not by pretending they don't happen, but by embracing them as unavoidable opportunities for growth and, counterintuitively, for building deeper trust. The act of making a mistake is human, it's a given. How we choose to respond to that mistake, however, is where our character is revealed. The Stoic virtue of humility is key here. It's the understanding that we are fallible creatures, capable of error at any moment. To deny this is to live in arrogance, and arrogance is a trust killer. To accept it is to live in reality, and reality is the only solid ground upon which trust can be built. Epictetus, who focused intensely on the distinction between what is within our control and what is not, offered profound guidance on this front. He taught, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. This simple statement cuts to the heart of accountability. When we make a mistake, our ego's first defense is often to deflect, to justify, or to blame circumstances or other people. In doing so, we are essentially claiming that we already know enough that the mistake wasn't really our fault, or that it doesn't matter. This posture shuts down learning and signals to others that we are not open to feedback or growth. But when we humble ourselves and admit, I was wrong, I made an error in judgment, we do something powerful. We demonstrate that our commitment to truth and improvement is stronger than our desire to protect our own image. This vulnerability, far from being a weakness, is a tremendous strength that others can feel and trust. Imagine a practical scenario within a family. A father, trying to manage a hectic schedule, promises his daughter he will be there for her important piano recital. But the day arrives, a work crisis erupts, and he becomes completely absorbed, losing track of time. He misses the entire performance. Later that evening, he arrives home to a quiet, disappointed child. The easy, ego-driven path is to lead with an excuse. "I'm so sorry, honey, but you have no idea how crazy work was today. The client was furious and I had no choice." This response, while it contains an apology, is ultimately about defending his own position. It asks for her understanding of his plight, not true accountability for the broken promise. The Stoic path, the path of humility and accountability, would sound different. He would sit with her and say, "I made you a promise and I broke it. My work crisis is not an excuse. I failed to manage my time properly, and I failed to be there for you when you needed me. I am truly sorry and I will make it up to you. How can I show you that I will do better next time?" This response owns the error completely, without a shield of justification. It validates her feelings of disappointment and shows respect for the promise that was made. The initial mistake hurt, but this transparent accountability can actually deepen trust. The daughter learns that her father is a man who tells himself the truth about his own failures. That is a lesson in integrity far more powerful than any lecture he could ever give. This principle operates with the same force in the professional world. A team leader who pushes through a flawed strategy despite concerns from their team will inevitably see it fail. The defensive leader will look for external factors to blame: market conditions, inadequate resources, uncooperative team members. This behavior destroys trust instantly, creating an environment of fear and silence where no one will risk offering honest opinions in the future. The accountable leader, guided by Stoic humility, will call the team together and say, "I was wrong. I did not listen to your concerns carefully enough, and I led us in the wrong direction. The failure of this project is my responsibility. Let's analyze what we can learn from this so we can all do better next time." This kind of leadership doesn't diminish authority, it fortifies it. It proves that the leader's ego is not more important than the team's mission and well-being. Team members will trust that leader more because they know he or she has the courage to face the truth, creating a culture where it is safe for everyone to take calculated risks and learn from the outcomes. So we arrive at a moment for honest self-assessment. Think about the last significant mistake you made, whether at work or at home. When it became clear that you were at fault, what was your very first instinct? Was it to craft an explanation, to find a reason why it wasn't entirely your responsibility? Or were you able to pause, quiet the defensive voice of the ego, and simply own the error with clarity and without added drama? This is not about self-flagellation. The Stoics were opposed to wallowing in guilt, which is just another form of self-absorption. It is about clear-eyed ownership. Every time we choose accountability over defensiveness, we are not just fixing a single error, we are strengthening our own character and sending an undeniable message to everyone around us that we are trustworthy, especially when we are at our most vulnerable. In a noisy world, listening is a superpower for trust. We live in an age of unprecedented distraction, where conversations often happen with one person typing on a phone and another mentally rehearsing their response. True, undivided attention has become a rare commodity, and because it is so rare, it is incredibly valuable. The Stoics recognized this 2 millennia ago. For them, listening was not a passive activity. It was an active, disciplined practice of attention and presence. It was a way to exercise the core Stoic virtue of focus, to fully engage with the present moment, and most importantly, to show profound respect for the person speaking. When you give someone your complete attention, you are silently communicating that they matter, that their thoughts are valuable, and that you are a safe person to share them with. This is how trust is built, not in grand declarations, but in the quiet, focused space between two people. Seneca, in his letters, offered timeless advice on communication that cut straight to the heart of this practice. He wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for a kindness. Active listening is one of the most profound and understated forms of kindness we can offer. It is a generous gift of our time and our focus." Seneca understood that to listen well is to set aside your own ego, your own agenda, and your own internal monologue to truly receive what another person is offering. It's an act of service that says, "For these few moments my world can wait. I am here with you." This Stoic approach transforms listening from a mere auditory function into a moral action, a deliberate choice to connect with and understand another member of our shared human community. It is the opposite of the self-absorption that so often characterizes our interactions. This principle becomes powerfully evident in leadership. Consider a manager whose team is presenting the results of a difficult project that ultimately failed. The easy, ego-driven reaction is to interrupt, to assign blame, to explain why the approach was wrong from the start, or to immediately pivot to solving the problem. But a leader who embodies Stoic listening does something different. They create a container of safety. They let the team present the entire story without interruption. They ask open-ended questions not to interrogate but to understand. What did you learn from the process? What was the biggest surprise? If you could go back and change one decision, what would it be and why? This kind of attentive, non-judgmental listening does several things at once. It makes the team feel valued and respected, which builds immense loyalty. It surfaces crucial information that would never be shared in a defensive, blame-filled environment, and it demonstrates that the leader's primary concern is collective learning and growth, not protecting their own image. This builds a deep, resilient trust that encourages transparency and risk-taking long into the future. Yet, this is perhaps one of the most challenging skills to master because it requires us to quiet our own mind. So much of what we call listening is actually just waiting for our turn to speak. We half listen while composing our next brilliant point, our story to top theirs, or our piece of advice. We listen to reply, not to understand. The Stoic practice is to listen to comprehend, to be fully present with the other person's words, their tone, and even their silence. It's about seeking to understand the entire message, both the content and the emotion behind it. This is how we move beyond superficial conversation and into the realm of genuine connection. It's in these moments that people feel truly seen and heard, and that is the bedrock upon which all lasting trust is constructed. Take a moment for an honest self-assessment. Recall your last significant conversation. Where was your attention? Were you fully engaged with the other person, absorbing their words and noticing their non-verbal cues? Or was your mind already racing ahead, formulating your response, crafting a story of your own, or even drifting to your to-do list? This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. The first step toward becoming a better listener, and therefore a more trustworthy person, is simply to notice the habit of your own mind in conversation. Every time you consciously choose to rein your attention back in and focus completely on the person in front of you, you are not just having a better chat. You are actively building a bridge of trust that can support the weight of far more important things. Crisis doesn't build character, it reveals it. This Stoic insight cuts to the very heart of what it means to be reliable. Anyone can appear trustworthy when the sun is shining and the path is smooth. But when the storm hits, when uncertainty clouds every decision and pressure mounts, that is the moment our true nature is laid bare. The Stoics didn't believe that difficult times magically create virtue within us. Rather, they believed that crisis acts as a furnace, burning away everything that is superficial and leaving only our core character intact. It is in these moments of extreme pressure that trust is not just tested but truly forged. A person who remains steadfast, principled, and dependable when everything is falling apart demonstrates a level of reliability that becomes the stuff of legend. They become the anchor in the storm, and that is a form of trust that people remember for a lifetime. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who faced relentless wars, plagues, and political betrayals, understood this reality intimately. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the ultimate Stoic reframe of a crisis. He isn't saying to ignore the difficulty or pretend it doesn't hurt. He is saying that the very obstacle itself, the crisis, is the path forward. Your response to it is where your virtue is demonstrated. Your steadfastness in the face of it is what builds unshakable trust. When you meet a disaster not with panic or despair, but with calm resolve and a clear head, you send a powerful message to everyone around you: I will not be moved. I can be relied upon, especially now. This isn't about being emotionless. It's about having your emotions but not being ruled by them. It is this mastery that makes a person a beacon of stability when others are losing their way. History and our own lives are filled with powerful examples of this principle. Consider a small community facing a natural disaster, like a devastating flood. In the initial chaos, there is fear and confusion, but soon a pattern emerges. Certain individuals naturally step into roles of reliability. It might be a local shop owner who, though his own business is underwater, uses his knowledge of the town's layout to help direct rescue efforts. It could be a retired nurse who calmly sets up a first aid station in her garage, providing not just medical care but also a sense of order and compassion. These people don't have official titles in that moment. They have character. Their actions reveal a deep-seated commitment to their community. People begin to look to them for guidance, to trust their decisions, to follow their lead. The crisis didn't give them these qualities. It simply revealed the strength that was always there, and in doing so, it deepened the community's trust in them to a level that decades of peaceful coexistence might never have achieved. This dynamic plays out on smaller but no less significant stages every day. In a company, a financial crisis might lead to layoffs and plummeting morale. The manager who remains transparent, who fights for her team, who makes difficult decisions with compassion and clarity, and who continues to show up with resolve, that manager builds a loyalty that transcends the job description. Her team learns that she is someone who can hold the line under pressure, and that trust will define their relationship long after the crisis has passed. In a family, a serious illness can tear some apart, but it can also reveal the rock-solid dependability of certain members. The sibling who coordinates doctor's appointments, the parent who provides not just financial support but emotional strength, the relative who simply shows up day after day with quiet consistency. These are the people who become the family's foundation. Their reliability in the crisis becomes the new, elevated standard of trust. So let's bring this reflection close to home. Think about your own life and the challenges you faced, big or small. When things got difficult, who did you find yourself turning to? Was it the friend with the most entertaining stories, or was it the one you knew would answer the phone at 3 in the morning without a hint of annoyance? Was it the colleague who always had the flashiest ideas, or the one who remained calm and methodical when a project was on the verge of collapse? The people we instinctively seek out in our own moments of crisis are almost always those who have proven their reliability not through words but through revealed character. They are the living embodiment of the Stoic ideal, individuals for whom virtue is not a fair-weather friend, but a constant companion, especially when it is needed most. Truth spoken with compassion builds bridges. This is the delicate, powerful balance the Stoics strived for, a commitment to honesty that never loses sight of our shared humanity. For them, brutal frankness was not a virtue. It was often a failure of character, a lack of wisdom and compassion. The goal was never to simply unload the unvarnished truth for its own sake, but to communicate in a way that was both truthful and beneficial. They understood that a truth delivered with cruelty or indifference could do more damage than a lie, shattering trust and creating resentment. The virtuous path, therefore, was to align one's words with both reality and goodwill, ensuring that the intent behind the honesty was to help, to heal, or to improve a situation, not to merely be right or to inflict pain. Seneca, in his profound letters on ethics, provides the perfect guiding principle for this practice. He advised, "We should say what we feel and feel what we say. Let speech harmonize with life." But he immediately follows this with the crucial caveat that this harmony must be guided by goodwill. He expands on this, writing that we must speak in such a way that we are heard gladly and that our words sink deep, which can only happen if the listener feels our benevolent intent. This is the Stoic art of speaking truth with goodwill. It's the understanding that the impact of your words matters just as much as their factual content. It requires a moment of pause before speaking, a moment to ask not just, "Is this true?" but also, "Is this necessary? Is this kind? Will this help the person hearing it move toward a better state?" This disciplined approach to communication is what transforms honesty from a weapon into a tool for construction. Consider a modern scenario that plays out in countless relationships. A close friend asks for your candid opinion on a new business plan they've poured their heart into. You've reviewed it, and you can see several fundamental flaws that you believe will lead to its failure. The brutally honest approach, devoid of malice but also devoid of tact, might sound like this: "This will never work. The market is saturated, your financial projections are unrealistic, and your branding is completely off. You're going to lose all your money." While every point may be technically true, this delivery is likely to be devastating. It feels like an attack on their dream and their judgment. It may end the conversation and damage the trust in your friendship because the underlying message received is, "I think your idea is foolish." Now contrast that with the Stoic approach, guided by Seneca's principle of goodwill. You might begin by acknowledging their effort and passion. "I am so impressed by the depth of research and the passion you've put into this. It's clear this means a great deal to you." This establishes that you are on their side, that you see and value their work. Then you frame your honest feedback with a constructive lens. "As your friend who wants nothing more than for you to succeed, I have some thoughts on how we might strengthen the plan even further. For instance, the current financial model might be optimistic. Perhaps we could workshop some more conservative scenarios to build a stronger safety net. And I wonder if tweaking the branding could help it stand out more in a crowded field. I'm happy to roll up my sleeves and help you think through these pieces." The core truth, the concerns about the finances and branding, is still communicated, but it's wrapped in support, collaboration, and a clear demonstration of caring. This approach preserves your friend's dignity, makes them feel supported, and actually makes them more likely to hear and act on your criticism. It doesn't just deliver truth, it builds trust through the manner of its delivery. This principle applies everywhere: in parenting, in management, in partnerships. Telling a team member their presentation was disorganized and confusing might be true, but it will only make them defensive. Guiding them with, "You had some great data in there. For next time, I think structuring it with a clearer narrative upfront would make your brilliant points land with even more power, is both honest and empowering. The difference is everything. It's the difference between being a critic and being a coach. One breaks things down, the other builds them up, and people trust a coach infinitely more than a critic. This invites a moment of genuine self-reflection. Think about the last time you had to deliver a difficult truth to someone you care about. It could have been giving critical feedback, addressing a sensitive issue, or declining a request. As you replay that conversation in your mind, scrutinize not just the content of your words, but their texture and tone. Was your primary goal to unburden yourself of the truth, or was it to communicate in a way that the other person could actually hear and benefit from? Did you consider their emotional state and their capacity to receive that information in that moment? The Stoic practice is to make that pause, that moment of consideration, a non-negotiable part of the process. It is in that space between thought and speech that we choose whether to build a bridge with our honesty or simply drop a bomb. Trust flourishes where boundaries are honored. This principle might seem like a modern concept of psychological health, but its roots are deeply embedded in Stoic philosophy, particularly in their unwavering focus on self-control and the clear distinction between what is within our power and what is not. For the Stoics, respecting boundaries was not about building walls. It was about recognizing the inherent autonomy and sovereignty of every individual. It was an exercise in humility and discipline, the understanding that we have no right to impose our will, our emotions, or our expectations on another person. To do so is to violate their inner citadel, their core self, and nothing erodes trust faster than the feeling of being trespassed upon, of having your personal space, whether physical, emotional, or intellectual, disregarded. Epictetus, who dedicated his life to teaching the practical application of Stoic freedom, provided the ultimate mental framework for this. He famously taught, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. This is the foundational Stoic boundary. It draws a bright, clear line around the only thing we truly own, our own mind, our judgments, and our choices. Everything else, the actions of others, their opinions of us, external events, lies outside that line. When we respect this fundamental boundary in ourselves, we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, which is a recipe for frustration and anxiety. But more importantly for trust, when we apply this understanding to others, we learn to respect their autonomy. We recognize that their thoughts, feelings, and decisions are their own, and our role is not to manage them but to interact with them with respect and without imposition. We can see this principle in action in the ancient world, particularly in the Stoic view of friendship. A true Stoic friendship, as described by philosophers like Seneca, was not a possessive or codependent relationship. It was a union of two autonomous individuals who chose to walk together in virtue. They did not make excessive demands on each other's time or emotional resources. They did not expect their friend to solve their problems or manage their happiness. They offered advice when asked, but ultimately respected the other's right to make their own choices, even if they were unwise. This mutual respect for each other's internal and external boundaries created a relationship built on freedom rather than obligation, which is the most fertile ground for deep, abiding trust. In the modern workplace, this translates directly to the manager who assigns a task but trusts their employees' methodology without micromanaging. It's the colleague who doesn't press for personal details when someone says they've had a rough weekend, understanding that the boundary of "I don't wish to discuss it" is to be honored, not challenged. Consider a more personal scenario. Imagine a couple where one partner has had a difficult day and is quiet and withdrawn. The other partner, perhaps feeling anxious or neglected, has a choice. They can impose on that boundary, repeatedly asking, "What's wrong? Tell me, are you upset with me?" This approach, though often well-intentioned, is a form of pressure. It demands that the withdrawn partner manage the anxious partner's emotions by providing reassurance, violating their own need for space. The Stoic approach, rooted in respect and self-control, would be different. The partner might say, "I sense you might need some quiet time. I'm here for you whenever you feel like talking, or if you just want company without talking." No pressure. This statement does several things. It acknowledges the boundary with respect. It offers support without making a demand. It demonstrates the emotional self-control to not take the other's mood personally. This respectful distance, paradoxically, often makes the withdrawn partner feel safer and more willing to open up sooner, because they trust that their need for space will not be met with punishment or pressure. The boundary is not a barrier to intimacy, it is the precondition for it. This practice requires constant vigilance because the impulse to overstep is often subtle and disguised as care or concern. It's the friend who gives unsolicited advice on your relationship, the parent who continues to question an adult child's career choice, or the team member who volunteers a coworker for a task without asking. Each of these small impositions, these minor disrespects of another's domain, are tiny fractures in the foundation of trust. They communicate a silent message: "I know what is best for you better than you do." To consistently resist this impulse to pause and ask, "Is this my business? Is this within my control?" is to practice a profound form of respect that people feel deeply, even if they can't articulate it. It tells them that you see them as a capable, autonomous adult, fully entitled to their own journey. And there are few greater gifts we can give another person, and few stronger catalysts for genuine, lasting trust. So as you move through your interactions today, pay close attention to the invisible lines between people. Are you honoring them, or are you, perhaps with the best of intentions, stepping over them? Acknowledgement is the currency of trust. It's the simple, profound act of seeing the good in others and the value in their actions, and then taking the moment to voice that appreciation. In the Stoic framework, this wasn't just good manners. It was a vital practice of justice and interconnectedness. The Stoics believed in living in accordance with nature, and a fundamental part of human nature is our social bond, our need for community and mutual support. Gratitude is the conscious recognition of that bond. It is the verbal and emotional payment for services rendered, for kindnesses given, and for virtues observed in others. When we express genuine gratitude, we are doing more than just saying thank you. We are affirming the worth of another person's effort or character. We are telling them, "I see you. I see the good you have done, and it has made a positive impact on my world." That validation is a powerful catalyst for trust, transforming a simple transaction or interaction into a meaningful connection. Marcus Aurelius, in the solitude of his thoughts, constantly practiced this recognition. He wrote in his Meditations, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." While this is often cited as a quote about self-gratitude, it reveals a mindset that naturally extends outward. A person who cultivates this daily awareness of life's gifts is far more likely to notice and appreciate the specific gifts offered by other people. Aurelius filled his private journal with reminders to appreciate the qualities of those around him, even the difficult ones, because he saw it as a duty of reason and a way to maintain harmony. For the Stoic, gratitude was a form of seeing the world clearly, of not taking the contributions of others for granted. This clear-eyed appreciation builds trust because it is rooted in honesty and observation, not flattery. Consider the dynamic in a modern workplace, which can so often feel like a series of impersonal tasks and deadlines. Imagine a team has just completed a grueling project, working late nights and weekends to meet an impossible deadline. The project manager could simply send a standard email saying, "Thanks for the hard work, everyone," and move on. While better than nothing, this generic acknowledgement often feels hollow, a procedural formality. Now imagine a manager who practices the Stoic art of specific gratitude. She takes 5 minutes to write individual notes. To one team member she says, "Thank you for your incredible calm under pressure when the client changed their requirements at the last minute. Your patience kept the entire team focused." To another she writes, "I am so grateful for the creativity you brought to the design challenge. Your innovative solution was what ultimately won the client over." This kind of acknowledgement does several things. It proves the manager was truly paying attention to individual contributions, not just the collective output. It shows that she values not just the result, but the specific virtues each person employed to achieve it: the patience, the creativity, the diligence. The team members feel seen not just as cogs in a machine, but as valued individuals whose unique strengths are recognized and appreciated. This builds a deep, authentic trust in their leader and fosters a culture where people are motivated to bring their best selves to work because they know their efforts will be seen and valued. This principle transforms every type of relationship. A simple thank you to a partner for handling a stressful school drop-off, specifically noting how their patience made the morning smoother, reinforces teamwork and mutual respect. Acknowledging a friend for their listening ear during a difficult time and naming how their empathy made you feel less alone deepens the bond of friendship far more than a generic "thanks for talking." Each specific act of gratitude is a deposit in the emotional bank account of a relationship, and the balance of that account is the very measure of trust. It tells the other person that their actions have meaning and that their presence in your life is an active, positive force. So let's bring this into a moment of quiet reflection. Can you recall the last time you offered someone a truly specific, heartfelt expression of gratitude, one that went beyond the automatic thanks we so often utter without thinking? Perhaps it was for something recent, or perhaps it's for something from long ago that you never properly acknowledged. That feeling, that slight pull to recognize someone's impact on you, is an invitation to practice this Stoic virtue. The act of giving that gratitude not only strengthens your bond with them, but also, in a beautiful feedback loop, strengthens your own character by training you to be more observant of the good that surrounds you. Rush to judge and trust evaporates. This might be one of the most immediately practical and yet profoundly difficult Stoic codes to master. In our hyper-connected world, we are constantly bombarded with fragments of information, half-told stories, and out-of-context actions, and our brains, eager for efficiency, are wired to fill in the gaps with assumptions and snap judgments. The Stoics saw this tendency not as a helpful shortcut, but as a major obstacle to wisdom and a primary destroyer of trust. They understood that a judgment, once formed, creates a rigid filter through which we then view all subsequent information, often blinding us to the truth and causing us to misread intentions, assign false motives, and damage relationships based on incomplete or entirely incorrect data. The Stoic practice, therefore, was to actively cultivate a pause, to suspend that automatic judgmental response, and to choose a state of curious uncertainty until the full picture could emerge. This intellectual humility is a superpower for building trust, because it communicates to others that you are more interested in understanding them than in simply categorizing them. Seneca, who wrote extensively on the turmoil caused by rash emotions and opinions, offered a powerful antidote. He advised, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." This insight is directly applicable to our rush to judgment. The stories we tell ourselves about why someone did something, the narratives we spin in the absence of facts, often cause us far more pain and lead to far more conflict than the actual event itself. The person who cut us off in traffic becomes a personal insult in our mind. The colleague who didn't reply to our email becomes a sign of disrespect or a plot against us. Seneca's wisdom calls us to recognize that our initial knee-jerk judgment is usually a product of this frightened imagination, not a clear-eyed view of reality. By withholding that judgment, we give reality a chance to catch up, and we spare ourselves and others a great deal of unnecessary suffering. Imagine a scenario that could happen in any shared living space. A roommate comes home from a long day at work looking forward to a quiet evening. They open the refrigerator to get the dinner they prepared the night before, only to find the container empty, sitting in the sink. The immediate, automatic judgment might be one of anger and frustration. "My roommate is so inconsiderate, they knew that was mine. They have no respect for my things or my time." This judgment feels true and justified in the heat of the moment. It creates a story of intentional disrespect. Armed with this story, the roommate might storm into the living room prepared for a confrontation, their tone accusatory, their trust in their housemate instantly shattered. But what if instead they practiced the Stoic pause? What if they withheld that judgment and chose curiosity over condemnation? Later, they might notice a note on the counter they missed earlier. "Hey, sorry for the emergency. My friend had a crisis and I had to rush out with some food for them. I grabbed your container by mistake. We'll replace it tomorrow and make it up to you." In an instant, the entire story flips. The action wasn't one of disrespect. It was an act of compassion under pressure. The patience in judgment, the decision to not immediately react to the initial story, prevented a painful argument and instead revealed a reason to trust their roommate's character even more. That moment of restraint becomes a brick in the foundation of their relationship, proving that they give each other the benefit of the doubt. This practice is not about being naive or ignoring genuine wrongdoing. It is about ensuring that our responses are proportionate and accurate to the actual event, not to the scary story our imagination concocted in the absence of facts. In the workplace, this might look like a manager who receives a complaint about an employee being rude to a client. The quick judgment would be to reprimand the employer immediately. The Stoic approach would be to suspend judgment, investigate further, and discover that the client had been verbally abusive for 20 minutes, and the employee's firm tone was actually a professional boundary-setting maneuver that saved the company from a problematic client. The manager's patience in this case builds immense trust with the employee, who feels that their manager is fair and seeks to understand before condemning. Think back on your own relationships, both past and present. Can you identify a specific instance where your initial, swift judgment of a person or a situation turned out to be completely wrong? Perhaps you wrote someone off as aloof or arrogant, only to learn later they were simply incredibly shy or going through a period of deep personal grief. Maybe you assumed a friend's silence was a sign of anger towards you, when in reality they were preoccupied with a family worry they weren't ready to share. That moment when you discovered the truth behind your assumption, did it teach you something about the cost of rushing to judge? And conversely, can you recall a time when someone afforded you that same grace, when they patiently withheld their judgment of you and in doing so, gave you the space to explain yourself or simply to be human? The feeling of being given that benefit of the doubt, of being trusted before all the facts were apparent, is one of the most powerful trust-building experiences we can have. Silence can break trust, courage can restore it. This Stoic insight reveals a profound truth about the nature of trust. It is not a passive state to be maintained, but an active commitment that must sometimes be defended, even at great personal cost. The Stoics revered courage as one of the 4 cardinal virtues, but their conception of it went far beyond the battlefield. It included what they called moral courage, the fortitude to speak truth to power, to defend someone who is being treated unfairly, or to voice an unpopular opinion when it is the right thing to do. This form of courage is a direct expression of the Stoic virtue of justice, the unwavering commitment to fairness and the good of the whole community. When we choose to break a complicit silence and speak up for what is right, we are making a powerful declaration. We are telling everyone watching that our principles are more important than our comfort, and that we value integrity over approval. This act, more than almost any other, forges an ironclad bond of trust with those we defend and with all who witness our character in action. Epictetus, who understood the paralyzing nature of fear, provided a clear directive for this kind of moral bravery. He taught, "It is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of death or pain." This gets to the very heart of why speaking up is so difficult. We fear social ostracism, professional repercussions, or becoming a target ourselves. Our imagination, as the Stoics knew, conjures far worse consequences than reality often delivers. Epictetus urges us to fear the internal act of cowardice itself, the choice to abandon our principles, more than we fear any external outcome. The pain of living with the knowledge that we remained silent when we should have spoken is, from a Stoic perspective, a far greater injury than any punishment we might receive for doing the right thing. This reframe is empowering. It shifts our focus from the terrifying, unknown external reaction to the known, internal metric of our own virtue. The goal is not to be fearless, but to have our commitment to justice be stronger than our fear. We see this Stoic courage embodied in figures throughout history, often at immense personal risk. Consider the ancient Roman senator, Cato the Younger, a staunch Stoic who became famous for his relentless, vocal opposition to the corruption and tyranny of Julius Caesar. Cato knew his stance would make him powerful enemies and likely lead to his ruin, yet he spoke in the Senate again and again, not for personal gain, but because he believed it was just. His unwavering voice became a symbol of republican integrity, and even those who disagreed with him trusted his motives were for the good of Rome. In our modern era, we see this same virtue in whistleblowers who expose unethical practices in corporations or governments. These individuals often face professional exile, legal battles, and public scorn. Yet, by choosing to speak up, they place the welfare of the public above their own personal security. Their courage, though controversial, creates a ripple of trust. It tells every employee in that organization and every citizen in that country that there are still people who will not be silenced by power, that truth can still find a voice. They restore trust not just in individuals but in the very systems they are trying to repair. This principle operates on a smaller but no less vital scale in our daily lives. It's the colleague who notices a manager consistently taking credit for a junior employee's ideas. The easy path is to stay silent, to avoid the awkwardness and potential conflict. The courageous path, guided by Stoic justice, is to privately and respectfully speak to the manager, or to publicly acknowledge the junior employee's contribution in the next team meeting. It's the friend who is part of a social group that starts gossiping maliciously about someone who isn't present. The complicit silence of everyone else implicitly condones the behavior. The courageous act is to gently but firmly change the subject, or to say, "I'm not comfortable with this, maybe we should talk about something else." This isn't about being self-righteous, it's about upholding a standard of respect. In that moment, you might feel a wave of social discomfort, but you send an undeniable message to everyone in that room. This is a person of principle. You become someone others know they can trust to do the right thing, even when it's hard. You become an ally. This invites a moment of honest and perhaps uncomfortable self-reflection. Look back over the past few months of your life, in your workplace, your family gatherings, or your social circles. Can you recall a specific instance where you witnessed something unfair, unkind, or unethical, a moment where a voice was needed, and you chose to remain silent? What was the fear that held you back? Was it the fear of rocking the boat, of being seen as a troublemaker, or of becoming the next target? Now, imagine an alternative outcome. If you had mustered the courage to speak, what might have been different, not necessarily in the situation itself, but in the way people viewed you and, more importantly, in the way you viewed yourself? The trust we build with others is deeply intertwined with the trust we build with ourselves. Every time we act with courage, we reinforce the trust in our own character, confirming that we are the kind of person we aspire to be. And that self-trust is the foundation upon which all other trust is built. Success tests trust more than failure. It's a truth the Stoics understood with piercing clarity. While hardship reveals our core character, prosperity and achievement present a different and often more insidious kind of challenge, the temptation of arrogance. In times of struggle, we are often humbled and reminded of our need for others. But in the glow of victory, it is dangerously easy to forget the contributions, the support, and the sheer luck that paved the way. We begin to believe our own press, to internalize the praise, and to see our success as a purely personal triumph. This shift in perspective, from grateful to entitled, is a silent killer of trust. The Stoics believed that true virtue wasn't just about enduring hardship with grace. It was equally about handling good fortune with humility. It is this modest, grounded approach to success that preserves relationships and maintains the hard-won trust we've built along the way. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the history of the world, constantly wrestled with this very danger in his private writings. He repeatedly reminded himself, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. This might seem like a morbid reflection, but for a Stoic, it was the ultimate tool for cultivating humility. Meditating on his own mortality was his way of cutting ego down to size. It was a powerful antidote to the vanity and self-importance that so often accompany high achievement. By remembering that his power, his status, and his very life were temporary and fragile, he grounded himself in a reality far larger than his own success. This practice prevented him from becoming intoxicated by his own position and ensured that his actions were guided by reason and virtue, not by arrogance. It was a daily mental discipline to stay connected to the common humanity he shared with every other person, from the highest senator to the lowest slave. We can find a powerful modern example of this Stoic humility in the leadership of someone like Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Following the legendary Steve Jobs was an almost impossible task, and guiding Apple to become the first publicly traded U.S. company to reach $1 trillion market cap was a historic achievement. Yet, those who have worked with Cook consistently describe him as remarkably humble and grounded. He is known for his quiet demeanor, his focus on collaboration, and his habit of deflecting praise onto his team. In meetings, he is more likely to ask thoughtful questions than to deliver grandiose pronouncements. There's a famous story about him quietly and anonymously waiting in line for coffee at the Apple cafeteria, just like any other employee. This isn't a calculated publicity stunt. It's the behavior of a leader who understands that his title does not make him inherently more valuable than anyone else in the company. This profound humility is a massive engine of trust. His team knows that he won't hoard credit, that he values their contributions, and that he sees the company's success as a collective achievement. This makes them more loyal, more innovative, and more willing to go the extra mile because they trust that their leader sees them and values them. This principle operates with just as much force in our personal lives. Imagine a friend who achieves a major professional breakthrough, a huge promotion, a successful business launch, a prestigious award. How they behave in the weeks that follow will either cement or corrode the trust in their relationships. The friend who constantly talks about their new title, their increased salary, and their important connections, who begins to treat old friendships as if they are now beneath them, will quickly create distance and resentment. Their success becomes a barrier. Conversely, the friend who receives the same good fortune with genuine humility, who acknowledges the role of mentors, colleagues, and even luck, who makes a conscious effort to remain the same person they always were, actually deepens trust. Their friends and family feel proud of them, not alienated by them. Their humility is a signal that the relationship is still more important than the achievement. It proves that their character is solid and unchanged by external circumstances. So let's turn this reflection inward. Think about a time when you experienced a meaningful success, no matter the scale. It could be acing an exam, finishing a big project, receiving a compliment, or winning a competition. In that moment of triumph, where did your mind go? Was your first impulse to celebrate your own brilliance and hard work, or was it to feel a sense of gratitude for the teachers, the colleagues, the family, or the circumstances that made it possible? Did you feel the subtle pull to let that success redefine how you saw yourself in relation to others, to feel just a little bit superior? Or did you make a conscious effort to stay grounded, to share the credit, and to downplay the achievement? The Stoic practice is to actively cultivate the latter response. It's to use moments of success as an opportunity to practice gratitude and reconnect with our shared humanity, rather than as a platform to elevate ourselves above it. This isn't about false modesty. It's about the genuine recognition that we are all part of an interconnected web, and our individual triumphs are never entirely our own. Loyalty isn't conditional, it's built in storms. This Stoic principle elevates loyalty from a simple feeling of affection to a conscious, unwavering commitment, a chosen steadfastness that is proven not when things are easy, but precisely when they are most difficult. For the Stoics, loyalty was a direct expression of virtue, particularly courage and justice. It was the courage to stand by someone when it was inconvenient, unpopular, or even dangerous. And it was the justice of honoring your commitments and recognizing the inherent worth of the relationship itself. They believed that fair-weather friendship was no friendship at all. It was merely a transaction of convenience. True loyalty, in their view, is the unshakable decision to remain anchored to another person, not because of what you are getting from them in the moment, but because of the shared values and mutual respect that form the foundation of your bond. This kind of loyalty is the ultimate stress test for trust, revealing its depth and durability under the most extreme pressure. Seneca, in his beautiful letters on friendship, gets to the very heart of this Stoic ideal. He writes, "Friendship always benefits, love sometimes wounds." This might sound counterintuitive at first, but his meaning is profound. The benefit of true friendship, of real loyalty, is not always immediate comfort or pleasantness. Sometimes the most loyal thing you can do is to tell a friend a difficult truth that wounds their ego but saves their character. Sometimes it's to stand with them through a crisis that brings no personal gain and only personal sacrifice. The benefit Seneca speaks of is the long-term, profound good of having a bond that is incorruptible by circumstance. This is the loyalty that endures hardships, not in spite of them, but because the hardships become the very material that forges a stronger, more resilient connection. It is this understanding that transforms loyalty from a passive state into an active verb, something you do, something you choose again and again, especially when it's hard. History provides a powerful, real-world example of this Stoic loyalty in the story of the Roman Emperor Nero's tutor, Seneca himself, and his relationship with the poet Lucan, who was also his nephew. When Lucan became involved in a failed plot to assassinate Nero, the entire circle of conspirators was rounded up. Seneca, though there is debate about his own knowledge of the plot, was caught in the net of the emperor's paranoia. He was ordered to take his own life. The true test of loyalty, however, came from Lucan. While being tortured, it was alleged that Lucan named his own mother as a co-conspirator in a desperate attempt to save himself. This was the ultimate failure of Stoic loyalty, a choice of self-preservation over steadfastness. In contrast, Seneca's own death, as described by the historian Tacitus, was an attempt to meet his end with Stoic calm and virtue, staying true to his principles until the very end. The story serves as a stark lesson in the Stoic view of loyalty. It is not about blind allegiance to a person, but about unwavering commitment to shared virtue and principle. When those principles are broken, as they were by Lucan, the trust is irrevocably shattered. In our modern lives, we may not face life and death choices, but the principle of loyalty through adversity plays out in countless ways. Imagine a colleague at work is suddenly ostracized after a project fails. The office gossip mill is in overdrive, assigning blame and painting them as incompetent. The easy, self-protective path is to quietly distance yourself, to nod along with the criticism to avoid being associated with their failure. The Stoic path of loyalty is different. It might mean publicly acknowledging your own role in the project's outcome, deflecting the unfair criticism, and continuing to treat your colleague with the same respect as before. You don't have to defend their every action, but you defend their humanity and their right to a fair assessment. This kind of loyalty, demonstrated in the cold climate of professional adversity, builds a trust that is absolutely unbreakable. That colleague will know from that moment on that you are a person of character who can be relied upon when the stakes are high. This virtue extends deeply into our personal relationships as well. It's the friend who continues to show up for someone battling depression, even when that person is withdrawn, canceling plans, and unable to reciprocate support in the usual ways. It's the family member who stands by another through a financially ruinous divorce or a debilitating illness, offering practical help and emotional support without judgment or complaint. This is loyalty built in the storms Seneca described. It's not glamorous, it's often exhausting and thankless, but it is in these relentless, quiet acts of steadfastness that the deepest bonds of trust are welded together. The message it sends is simple and profound. I am here. I see your struggle and you are not alone in it. My commitment to you is not based on what you can do for me, but on who you are and who I strive to be. Now turn this reflection inward. Think about the various circles of your life, your family, your closest friends, your professional network. When was the last time one of these people faced a genuine storm? It could have been a personal loss, a public failure, a period of intense criticism, or a deep personal struggle. In that moment of their adversity, what was your response? Did you move closer, offering tangible support without being asked? Did you maintain a steady, reassuring presence? Or did you, perhaps unconsciously, take a step back, waiting for the storm to pass before re-engaging? This isn't about guilt, but about honest awareness. The Stoic ideal asks us to examine our capacity for loyal action, not in theory, but in the messy, inconvenient reality of other people's hardships. It challenges us to consider whether our relationships are built on the shifting sands of mutual convenience or the solid rock of unwavering commitment, ready to withstand any storm. Hidden agendas erode trust, transparency builds it. This principle gets to the very heart of what it means to interact with the world from a place of Stoic integrity. For the Stoics, trust wasn't a game of strategy where you concealed your true motives to gain an advantage. That kind of manipulation might win a short-term concession, but it permanently poisons the well of any relationship. Instead, they believed that the only solid foundation for trust was radical transparency of intention, the practice of ensuring that your inner motivations were pure, honest, and aligned with virtue, and that your outward actions accurately reflected that inner state. When your intentions are clear and honorable, you have nothing to hide and nothing to fear. You move through the world with a clean conscience and an open hand, and people sense that authenticity. They may not always agree with you, but they will trust that you are dealing with them in good faith. This unwavering focus on the purity of one's intentions is a recurring theme in Stoic philosophy, and Epictetus, the former slave who became a renowned teacher, framed it with his characteristic clarity. He instructed his students, first, tell yourself what kind of person you want to be, then do what you have to do. This is the essential first step toward transparent intentions. It forces a moment of brutal self-honesty before any action is taken. You must define your purpose based on virtue, not on hidden desires for approval, control, or personal gain. Are you entering this conversation to understand and connect, or to win an argument and prove yourself superior? Are you offering help to genuinely support someone, or to create a sense of obligation? Epictetus reminds us that every action flows from an initial intention, and if that intention is corrupt or obscured, the action itself, no matter how virtuous it appears, will be hollow and ultimately untrustworthy. We can see the power of this principle in action during high-stakes negotiations, where transparency is often mistakenly seen as a weakness. Imagine two companies are trying to form a partnership. The standard approach might involve each side holding their cards close to their chest, bluffing about their bottom line, and exaggerating their strengths while hiding their weaknesses. This often leads to a fragile agreement built on suspicion, where both parties are waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now, imagine a negotiator who practices Stoic transparency. They might begin by stating their core intentions clearly. Our goal is to form a long-term, mutually beneficial partnership that will allow both our companies to thrive. To that end, I want to be transparent about our limitations. Our current production capacity caps at X units per month, and we have a 2-week lead time. We are also concerned about your payment terms and need to find a middle ground that ensures our cash flow. This approach does not reveal all their leverage, but it reveals their honest intent and their genuine concerns. It signals that they are more interested in building a viable partnership than in winning the negotiation. This vulnerability, paradoxically, becomes a strength. It invites the other party to lower their own defenses and engage in a more honest and productive dialogue. The resulting contract may have the same terms, but the trust built during the process ensures it will be a living, cooperative agreement rather than a tense armed truce. This commitment to transparent intentions transforms our most personal relationships as well. Consider the difference between a partner who buys flowers after a fight and one who does so for no reason. In the first scenario, the intention, even if unspoken, is often clear: to smooth things over, to avoid further conflict, or to alleviate personal guilt. The flowers feel like a transaction, a peace offering that doesn't truly address the underlying issue. In the second scenario, the flowers are a pure expression of affection with no ulterior motive. They are a transparent gesture that says, "I was thinking of you." The action is identical, but the intention behind it makes all the difference in how it is received and how much trust it builds. One feels manipulative, the other feels genuinely loving. This is the Stoic lesson. It is not enough to perform the right actions. We must perform them for the right reasons, and often, it is crucial that those right reasons are understood by the other person. This invites a moment of challenging but necessary self-audit. Think about your interactions over just the last 24 hours. How many of them were driven by a motive you would be completely comfortable stating aloud to the other person? When you complimented a colleague's presentation, was it purely to encourage them, or was there a small part of you hoping to curry favor? When you agreed to take on a task you didn't have time for, was your intention to be helpful, or was it to avoid the discomfort of saying no and being perceived as uncooperative? We all have mixed motives sometimes. It's part of being human. The Stoic practice is not to achieve perfect purity, but to cultivate the self-awareness to recognize our hidden agendas and the courage to align our actions with our stated virtues. Every time we choose to clarify our intentions to ourselves and to others, we are choosing to build a world where our word is our bond, and where trust is not a calculated risk, but a natural outcome of how we choose to live. Trust grows when giving comes without strings. This Stoic principle elevates generosity from a simple transaction to a profound moral action, one that builds trust not through reciprocity, but through the sheer purity of its intent. For the Stoics, the act of giving was not a strategic investment meant to yield a return of favor, loyalty, or social credit. It was an expression of virtue, a practical application of the belief that we are all part of a shared human community. To help another person was to strengthen the whole, and the only reward sought was the internal satisfaction of having acted in accordance with nature and reason. When a gift or an act of service is offered without any expectation of payback, it carries a unique and powerful weight. It communicates a message that is utterly disarming. I am helping you simply because you need help, and I am in a position to provide it. Your well-being is its own reward. This kind of selflessness is so rare in our often transactional world that it stands out as a beacon of authentic character, forging trust that is both immediate and deep. Marcus Aurelius, in his private meditations, continually reinforced this standard for his own conduct. He wrote, "That which isn't good for the hive isn't good for the bee." This elegant metaphor captures the essence of Stoic generosity. The individual's good is inextricably linked to the good of the whole community. Therefore, an act of kindness that strengthens another person ultimately strengthens the entire network to which you belong. But he goes even further to address the inner motive, advising himself to ask, what is the nature of this thing that now seems to need my help, and what does it need? This reflective pause is crucial. It ensures the help is actually tailored to the other's true need, not to our own ego or desire to be seen as a benefactor. The most generous act, in the Stoic sense, is one that is thoughtfully designed for the recipient's benefit, delivered effectively, and then released without any mental attachment to the outcome or any desire for acknowledgement. We can see this virtue in its most potent form in the practice of anonymous giving. Imagine a single parent in a community struggling to make ends meet. facing an unexpected car repair bill that threatens their ability to get to work. They return home one day to find an envelope of cash slipped under their door with a simple note that says, "For your family." There is no name, no return address, no way to ever thank the giver. This act, devoid of any possibility of recognition or repayment, is a pure expression of Stoic generosity. The giver receives no social capital, no public praise, no warm feeling of gratitude directed their way. Their only reward is the knowledge that they alleviated a burden for a fellow human being. For the recipient, the impact is profound. It's not just the financial relief, it's the powerful, humbling realization that someone saw their struggle and chose to help with absolutely no strings attached. This creates a unique form of trust, not in a single individual, but in the goodness of people themselves. It restores faith in the community and inspires the recipient to pay that unconditional kindness forward when they are able, creating a ripple effect of trust that extends far beyond the original act. This principle operates with equal force in our daily, smaller interactions. It's the colleague who stays late to help you troubleshoot a problem on a project that isn't even theirs, and then says, "Don't worry about it, just glad it's working," deflecting any offer to return the favor. It's the friend who drops off a meal when you're sick without making a big production out of it, simply texting, "Left something on your porch, no need to reply." In these moments, the absence of any transactional expectation is what makes the gesture so powerful. You are left with a clear, unmistakable feeling that this person helped you because they genuinely care about your well-being, not because they are keeping a ledger of favors owed. That feeling is the bedrock of profound trust. It tells you that this is a person of authentic character, someone whose support you can count on without fear of incurring a hidden debt. Contrast this with the feeling we get when generosity does come with strings, however subtly attached. We've all experienced the person who gives a gift and then, weeks later, makes a request that feels like a direct call on that obligation. Or the relative who offers help but does so in a way that makes you feel indebted and beholden to their opinions. That kind of conditional giving doesn't build trust. It creates a sense of uneasy negotiation and quiet resentment. The relationship becomes a balance sheet rather than a bond. The Stoic ideal asks us to purge our acts of kindness of these hidden balances. It challenges us to give for the simple, virtuous joy of giving, to find our reward in the act itself, not in anything we expect to receive in return. This leads to a moment of quiet, potentially uncomfortable self-inquiry. Think about the last few times you offered help to someone, whether it was your time, your resources, or your emotional support. As you replay those moments in your mind, try to isolate your truest, deepest motivation. Was it primarily focused on the other person's need and their relief? Or was there a quieter, secondary whisper of a motive, a hope for their gratitude, an expectation of returned favor in the future, a desire to be seen as the kind of person who helps, or even a feeling of obligation that made the act feel more like a duty than a choice? This isn't about casting judgment on yourself. It's about cultivating the radical self-honesty the Stoics demanded. The goal is to gradually align our actions more closely with that first, pure motive, to help for the sake of helping. Every time we succeed, even in a small way, we aren't just being generous. We are actively constructing a reputation and a character that others can trust without reservation, because they know our care comes without a price tag. Time is a trust, waste it, and you waste trust. This Stoic insight elevates punctuality from a mere social convention to a profound moral issue, a tangible measure of the respect you hold for others and for the shared reality you inhabit. In the ancient world, where travel was slow and communication was difficult, A commitment to be somewhere at a certain time was a significant promise. To break that promise by being late was not seen as a minor oversight. It was a clear signal of disorganization, disrespect, or an inflated sense of self-importance. The Stoics viewed time as the most precious and non-renewable resource we are given. Therefore, how we choose to use our own time and how we choose to value the time of others becomes a direct reflection of our character and our priorities. When you are consistently punctual, you are sending a silent, powerful message to everyone you interact with. I see you. I value you. Your time is as important as my own. Seneca, in his poignant essay on the shortness of life, delves into this very philosophy with a sense of urgent clarity. He writes, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it." This is the core of the Stoic view. Time is not scarce because our lives are brief. It is made scarce through our own wastefulness and lack of discipline. Wasting another person's time, then, is not just an inconvenience, it is an act of theft. You are taking minutes or hours of their finite, irreplaceable life and consuming them for your own purposes without their consent. Seneca urges us to guard our time with fierce jealousy and to extend that same fierce respect to the time of others. To be punctual is to honor this Stoic principle in the most practical way possible. It is a daily, lived commitment to not be wasteful, to not steal, and to treat the moments of our lives and the lives of others with the reverence they deserve. This principle manifests with incredible power in the modern professional environment. Consider the difference between two managers leading team meetings. The first manager is consistently 5 to 10 minutes late. They breeze in, often with a coffee in hand, offering a casual, "Sorry, everyone, crazy morning." As they boot up their laptop, this pattern, repeated over weeks and months, sends a corrosive message to the team. It silently communicates that their time is less valuable than the manager's, that their schedules and their own work priorities are disposable. It creates an undercurrent of quiet resentment and teaches the team that deadlines and commitments are flexible, eroding the overall discipline and trust within the group. Now consider the second manager who is guided by this Stoic virtue. They are not only always on time, they are often prepared and ready a few minutes early. They start the meeting precisely at the appointed hour, even if 1 or 2 people are still trickling in. This consistent behavior builds a culture of mutual respect. It tells the team, "I have called you here for a purpose, and I value the hour of your life we are about to spend together enough to be fully present and prepared for it." This respect for the clock translates into a more focused, efficient, and productive meeting. But more importantly, it builds a deep-seated trust in the manager's reliability and their fundamental respect for their team as individuals. The team learns that this leader's word is bound to the clock. If they say a meeting will end at 10, it ends at 10. This predictability and respect for boundaries makes people feel secure and valued, which is the absolute bedrock of a high-trust, high-performance team. This virtue extends far beyond the conference room. It's the friend who arrives at the restaurant at the agreed-upon reservation time, not forcing you to sit awkwardly alone at the table for 15 minutes. It's the parent who is consistently on time to pick up their child from school, so the child never has to feel that anxious knot of being the last one waiting. Each of these acts is a small but powerful deposit into the trust account of those relationships. Conversely, chronic lateness, despite the apologies that often accompany it, functions as a slow, steady withdrawal. The apologies eventually ring hollow because the action, the repeated theft of time, speaks louder than the words. It tells people that your comfort, your schedule, and your priorities will always trump theirs. This brings us to a point of necessary and perhaps uncomfortable self-reflection. cast your mind back over the last week of your life. How many appointments, meetings, or social gatherings did you attend? For each one, were you precisely on time, or did you arrive a few minutes early or a few minutes late? Now, go deeper than the simple fact of your arrival. What was the internal process that led to it? Did you build a buffer into your travel plans, anticipating the inevitable delays of traffic or last-minute tasks? Or did you plan your departure for the exact minute it would take to get there under perfect conditions, leaving no room for the unpredictability of life? That moment of planning, or lack thereof, is where the Stoic virtue is either practiced or neglected. It is a small daily referendum on how much you value your own commitments and the people you have made them to. The next time you find yourself rushing, breathless and apologetic into a room, ask yourself not just for whom you are late, but what principle you have failed to uphold. The trust you build by being a steward of time, both yours and others, is one of the simplest and most profound ways to demonstrate character in a world that often seems to have forgotten its value. Conflict handled with calm keeps trust intact. This Stoic principle moves beyond the simplistic idea of avoiding arguments and delves into the profound art of maintaining rational clarity and emotional equilibrium, even when faced with direct opposition or high-stakes disagreement. For the Stoics, conflict was not an anomaly to be feared or avoided at all costs. It was an inevitable feature of human interaction, a natural testing ground for one's virtue. The goal was not to never disagree, but to disagree well, to engage in conflict without becoming conflicted within oneself. They believed that the greatest damage in any argument is rarely caused by the disagreement itself, but by the uncontrolled emotions, the anger, defensiveness, and fear that hijack our reason and lead us to say and do things that fracture relationships and destroy trust. Composure, in the Stoic sense, is not passive acquiescence. It is a powerful, active state of self-possession that allows you to navigate toward a solution without sacrificing the relationship in the process. Epictetus, who focused intensely on the internal discipline required for a free life, provided the essential mental tool for this practice. He taught, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." This is the master key to Stoic calm. In the heat of a conflict, it is rarely the other person's words alone that upset us. It is our own judgment about those words, the story we instantly tell ourselves about their intent and meaning. We judge their tone as disrespectful, their disagreement as a personal attack, their alternative idea as a threat to our competence. Epictetus urges us to pause and challenge that initial, automatic judgment. Is this person truly trying to wound me, or are they merely passionate about their point? Is this a personal assault, or is it simply a clash of perspectives? By creating that tiny space between the stimulus and our response, we reclaim our power. We choose not to be disturbed. This inner peace is what allows us to respond instead of react, to seek understanding instead of victory, and in doing so, to preserve the trust that is so easily vaporized in the fire of emotional exchange. We can see this principle play out with incredible power in a historical example like the leadership of Abraham Lincoln during the American Civil War. His cabinet, known as the Team of Rivals, was filled with men who had openly disdained him, criticized him, and believed themselves to be more qualified for his job. The potential for destructive, trust-shattering conflict was enormous. Yet, Lincoln consistently demonstrated a profound Stoic calm. When his Secretary of the Treasury, Salmon Chase, repeatedly undermined him and even maneuvered to replace him, Lincoln's advisors brought him evidence of the treachery and demanded Chase's dismissal. Lincoln's response was not one of angry retaliation or public humiliation. He acknowledged Chase's actions with clarity, but he also recognized his immense competence and value to the Union cause. He ultimately refused to dismiss him, famously saying, "I have determined to shut my eyes to so much of what is past and to use the abilities of this man for the country's good." This calm, rational handling of a profound personal and political betrayal did more than just keep a talented administrator in place. It solidified the trust of his entire cabinet. They saw a leader who could not be provoked into petty vengeance, whose inner compass was fixed on the ultimate goal, preserving the Union rather than on his own wounded ego. His composure under such immense pressure became a bedrock of trust that held his administration together during the nation's most divisive conflict. In our own lives, we encounter this dynamic on a smaller but no less significant scale. Imagine a couple in the midst of a heated argument about finances. Voices are raised, past grievances are dragged into the present, and the original issue is completely lost in a storm of hurtful words and accusations. In this scenario, trust is the casualty. Each person walks away feeling attacked and misunderstood, less likely to be vulnerable and open in the future. Now imagine one partner chooses to apply the Stoic pause. They feel the surge of anger, but instead of giving it voice, they take a breath. They remember Epictetus and challenge their judgment. Is she trying to hurt me, or is she just terrified about our financial security? From that place of calm, they can change the entire course of the argument. They might say, in a quieter tone, "I can see how worried you are about this. I am too. Let's try to figure this out together instead of against each other." This shift doesn't mean they abandon their perspective, but they express it from a place of seeking collaboration rather than conquest. This single act of composure can de-escalate the entire situation, transforming a trust-destroying fight into a trust-building partnership where both people feel heard and respected. This invites a moment of honest and perhaps uncomfortable self-reflection. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement, whether with a partner, a colleague, or a friend, try to become a silent observer of your own internal process. Pay close attention to the physical sensations, the flush of heat, the clenched jaw, the racing heart. These are the signals that your emotions are taking the wheel. In that critical moment, ask yourself the Epictetus question: what is the story I am telling myself about this person's intention? Is that story absolutely true, or is it just one possible interpretation? Then make a conscious choice. Do you want to win this momentary argument, or do you want to preserve the long-term trust and respect in this relationship? The answer to that question will determine whether you add fuel to the fire or become the calm eye of the storm, guiding everyone toward a rational and respectful resolution. Example is the best teacher of trust. This final Stoic code brings us full circle, back to the very essence of what it means to live a life of integrity. While all the other principles, keeping your word, practicing discretion, showing empathy, are vital, they find their ultimate expression and power in this one undeniable truth: people will believe what you do long before they believe what you say. The Stoics understood that leadership, in any context, is not a title you are given. It is a perception you earn through the relentless consistency of your actions. To lead by example is to understand that you are constantly being watched, not in a paranoid sense, but in a practical one. Your family, your friends, your colleagues, and even casual acquaintances are unconsciously auditing your behavior, using it as a blueprint for what is acceptable and what is trustworthy. Your actions become the silent curriculum from which others learn how to behave, how to treat people, and what to expect from the world. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who carried the immense weight of leading an empire, was brutally honest with himself about this responsibility. He wrote in his private meditations, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." This is the ultimate distillation of leading by example. It is a command to stop talking about virtue and to start embodying it. For a leader like Aurelius, this meant that his every decision, from matters of state to his personal conduct, was a lesson in Stoicism. He couldn't simply lecture his generals on courage. He had to demonstrate it by riding into battle alongside them. He couldn't just preach about justice. He had to display it in his judgments, even when it was politically inconvenient. He knew that his subjects would not remember his edicts as clearly as they would remember his character. His actions were his most powerful edict, teaching his people what a Stoic leader looked like in flesh and blood, and in doing so, he built a foundation of trust that held the empire together through plague, war, and immense turmoil. We can see this principle embodied in a more modern context through the leadership of Ernest Shackleton, the polar explorer whose failed expedition became a legendary study in trust building through action. When his ship, the Endurance, was trapped and crushed by Antarctic ice, Shackleton and his crew of 27 men were stranded on the ice floes, facing almost certain death. In this ultimate crisis, Shackleton's words were meaningless, only his actions mattered. He didn't just tell his men to remain hopeful, he demonstrated unshakable optimism himself, meticulously maintaining routines and morale. He didn't just assign the most difficult tasks, he worked alongside his men, taking his fair share of the back-breaking labor in the freezing cold. He didn't just promise to get them home, he risked his own life in a tiny lifeboat on an 800-mile journey across the world's most treacherous ocean to fetch help. Every single action was a lesson in resilience, courage, and loyalty. His men trusted him with their lives not because of his speeches, but because they had seen his character in action every grueling day. They knew from direct experience that he would never ask them to do something he wasn't willing to do himself, and that he would sacrifice his own safety for theirs. That is trust earned not through position, but through profound example. This dynamic operates with just as much force in our everyday lives, far from the Antarctic ice. In a family, a parent who tells their child to be honest, but then asks them to lie about their age to get a discount at the movies, is teaching a powerful lesson in hypocrisy. The child learns that words are flexible and rules are for other people. Conversely, the parent who admits their own mistakes aloud, who apologizes when they are wrong, and who consistently acts with kindness even when it's difficult is providing a living curriculum in integrity. In the workplace, a CEO can give endless speeches about innovation and risk-taking, but if they punish every small failure and surround themselves with sycophants, their actions teach the real lesson: play it safe and please the boss. But a leader who celebrates intelligent failures, who publicly credits their team for ideas, and who is the first to adapt to new challenges, teaches their organization that trust and innovation are not just values on a wall, but the principles that guide actual behavior. So we arrive at the final, and perhaps most important, reflective question of our journey through these Stoic codes. Look at the small circle of your own world, your home, your workplace, your community. What lessons is your example teaching? When people observe your actions, especially when you think no one is watching, what are they learning about honesty, reliability, and character? Do your daily choices teach others that cutting corners is acceptable, that promises are flexible, and that self-interest comes first? Or do they teach a different lesson, that integrity is non-negotiable, that empathy is a strength, and that your word is your bond? You are a leader in someone's life, whether you realize it or not. Your behavior is the clearest, most credible message you will ever send about what you truly value. The trust you inspire will be a direct reflection of the example you have the courage to set. And so we arrive at the end of our journey, having walked through 20 timeless codes that guided the ancient world, and remain our most powerful blueprint for building trust today. From the non-negotiable foundation of integrity to the courageous act of speaking up, from the quiet power of discretion to the profound impact of leading by example, these Stoic principles are not relics of a bygone era. They are a living, breathing operating system for human connection, as relevant in our digital age as they were in the Roman Forum. They remind us that trust is not a mystery or a lucky accident. It is the direct result of choices we make every single day. It is built in the small moments, in the promise kept, the confidence guarded, the judgment withheld, and the truth spoken with compassion. These virtues, integrity, empathy, accountability, and all the others, are the universal currency of character, recognized and valued across every culture and every century. Seneca, whose wisdom has guided us throughout, leaves us with one final, powerful thought. He who has great power should use it lightly. This, in its essence, is what these 20 codes are all about. The power to influence, to build, to lead, and to connect is granted to us through the trust of others. And that power must be handled with the lightest, most respectful touch, through humility, through service, and through the unwavering commitment to virtue. This is not a heavy burden, but a liberating path. It frees us from the anxiety of manipulation and the fragility of a reputation built on sand. When our character is our credential, we can move through the world with confidence and peace. Your challenge now is to make this wisdom your own. This isn't about attempting a complete overhaul overnight. The Stoics were masters of gradual, consistent progress. So this week, choose just one of these 20 codes. Perhaps it's the one that resonated most deeply, or maybe it's the one that made you the most uncomfortable because it revealed an area for growth. Commit to practicing it with intention for the next 7 days. If you choose active listening, make a conscious effort in your next conversation to focus entirely on the other person, setting aside your own internal monologue. If you choose accountability, find one small mistake or oversight you've been avoiding and address it with clear-eyed honesty. Watch what happens. Observe how a single, focused application of these ancient principles begins to subtly shift your interactions and strengthen your relationships. This is how we change our lives and our communities, not through grand, sweeping declarations, but through the daily, disciplined practice of virtue. If this journey into Stoic wisdom has offered you value, if you're looking for more ways to apply these ancient lessons to the challenges of modern life, then consider subscribing to this channel. We have many more explorations of philosophy, character, and living with purpose on the way, and I would truly love to hear about your experiences. Which of these 20 codes speaks to you most powerfully? How do you plan to implement it? Share your thoughts and your own stories of building trust in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation and learn from each other. Thank you for your time and your attention. May your path be marked by wisdom, your character by strength, and your relationships by unshakable trust.